All right, I guess like I'm gonna start from the stretch. You was born in Scotland, right?
Yeah.
All right, and as far as I remember, they always said, you know, from Australia. It was shocking to me to find out he was actually born in Scotland.
Okay, this is how that all took place. I was born in Scotland, lived there till I was about 15 years old. Then my mother and father emigrated to Australia. Then 1962, George Barnes and I got in the wrestling business, and we was a tag team. 1974, Bobby Shane came over there, and he got us booked in Memphis, Tennessee, for Nick Goulis and Welsh. It was called Goulis Welsh Wrestling. Jerry Jarrett was the booker. Bobby Shane did all the paperwork. So when we came from Australia, they thought we were both Australian. I wore a kilt and everything when I got here. So it was one from Scotland, one from Australia. Well, people just said, all the Australians are coming. So we were both Australian. So I said, well, hell, I'm not going to fight that. I just became Australian. G'day, mate. How are you?
Yeah, that's it. Amazing.
Yeah, Jimmy's Australian because he was born there.
Oh,
so, you know, I was, so I just let it go. So I just became Australian, but I'm really a Scotsman.
Well, all right, and then plus I know you started out in circus at a young age.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how that came about and what you actually did?
Oh, yeah, okay. Like I said, 1960, we went to Australia. So a fellow named Doug Hawkins and I, my dad went to a place called Wollongong in Australia, and it was a steel town. And they were bricklayers, and they would, where they melt all the steel down, the vats would get so hot, the damn bricks would melt. So they, about once a month or every 2 months, you'd have to go in there and rebuild the walls. Well, that was what you did for a living, and I thought, no, not me. I'm not, I don't want to do this, man. And then people just, that's what they do. They just live there and they die and the sun takes over, and not me. So anyway, he says, no, let's go see what's going on. So we took off hitchhiking. We got a ride to Sydney, and we had about enough money for a cab to get to the YMCA, so we hailed this cab. Talking to the cab driver, he said, well, there's a circus in town, Bullen Circus. I said, well, he said, they'd probably give you a job. I said, okay, drop us off there. So dropped off at the big top, you see the tent, and we're knocking on this caravan door, and it says Bullen. And this guy comes to the door, he said, hey, we're looking for a job. He said, well, go into the big top, sleep there the night, and I'll talk to you in the morning. Go see the tent boss. I said, okay. So me and Doug Hawkins goes off and sleeps in the big top. We hear all the kind of noises. Another story after that. But anyway, some of the guys are sleeping in there, and some of them have women with them, but it's another story. Anyway, we thought we'd get killed, but we made it through the night. We woke up, go get breakfast, and we go get a job. So this Englishman was named Dale Fisher. He had my accent, I guess. He said, you from Scotland? I said, yeah. He said, I'm from England. I said, okay. He said, I'm in charge of the elephants. Would you like to work on elephants? It's a far better job than what they're telling you on the big top. I said, well, yeah, fine. So I go off with him, so we looked after the elephants. We had to feed him water and get him all ready for the show and do all kinds of things. And then he was with the lions and the tigers, so we ended up doing the lions and the tigers and looking after them too. So we did all animals on the circuit, but the lions and the elephant. So I tried the trapeze for a little while, but then they had a carnival go with it. And I had already started kind of wrestling with my uncle in Scotland through the judo school that he had. And I knew a little bit about professional wrestling, so I went to the guy who was called Sharman's Boxing Troop. So he says, can you wrestle? I said, well, yeah, kind of. He said, well, we need, and I was only little then, cute fella, 150 pounds. So he said, I need the guy on the midway to say, I'll fight this big devil. So I would do that. And if I couldn't beat him, there was a gimmick they had behind the tent with a hammer, and it knocked the guy out. And you know, you never paid the money out in the carnival.
So that's originally how you got into wrestling,
so that's how I got started actual wrestling. So I was bit with a bugger way back early on.
Yeah.
So then I left the show, me and him both, and went to Melbourne, Australia. And the gentleman named Clive Coram had an unarmed combat school, so I went to learn that, because I was always into that. I liked that, kind of like the MMA fighting today, but it was just a little different. So I saw a picture of him on the wall that said professional wrestler. I said, man, are you a professional wrestler? I was all over me. Yeah. He said, Bill, there's no money in it. You're too little. Too little? What are you talking about? So anyway, I was about 150 pounds, so I bugged him and bugged him. He said, stay back after class and I'll teach you a few things in professional wrestling, what they do. I said, okay. So I stayed back, and he says, look, if you can get up to 200 pounds, you're made, but there's nothing. Now this was 62.
Yeah.
So 1964, Jim Barnett came from Australia, and what used to be Georgia Championship Wrestling, he brought it to Australia and just called it Championship Wrestling, and he was the promoter. Well, they needed guys on Saturday morning, just like we used to do in Memphis and everywhere else, to come down, show up, and get a whooping. So George Barnes and me thought we were going down there, so we go down there. You know, I like this. So for 12 years, that's what we did. We was honing up, we was getting better at what we did. We was honing our skills as professional wrestling or whatever else. When Bobby Shane came over, He said, you guys would get over good in Memphis. They like smaller guys. But that time I was about 220 pounds. He was about 240. So he got us booked in Memphis, Tennessee, and we showed up January '75, and the rest is history, as they say.
Was Australian wrestling as big as it was, like when you
did,
did Memphis?
yeah. For what they did when Barnett came, but before that it was just in the leagues clubs. You used to go, it had to be in Sydney and just a show here and there, but every night in the leagues clubs they would the wrestle round. You could do the first match in one leagues club, drive 15 miles to the next one, and do the second match and be the main event in the third one.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of wrestling, but it was in rounds. 1 round, 2 round, 3 rounds, then a 4-rounder, then a 5-rounder was the main event. It wasn't the way we do it here in Memphis in the States. So anyway, it was a lot of wrestling.
When you first hit Memphis, who all was in the area? You know,
They just fired Lawler. Lawler was already here, was doing good. He got into it with a promotion, kind of, well, I'm leaving type thing, or, you know, go away. So he left and went to Georgia or Florida. I think Florida, him and Al Green became the heavenly bodies. They went to Florida. So there was a big void to be filled. So Jerry Jarrett said, look, I brought the guys from Australia, Barnes and Dundee, and I'm going to give them a shot. Push them. If they get over, great. If they don't. So if Lawler, he left, we took over, which was the best thing for us, because when the big dog's still in the yard, hard for the new dog to get over. So that was really what had happened. So he had voluntarily left or got fired, whichever one, but either way he was gone, which was good for us because they needed something. The first time we was in Memphis, it held 12,007 people. There might have been 1,400 people there. And Jared said, look, don't panic, this is a good town, this thing will sell out. Anyway, he said, we're going to do this we all, this we all, and this we all. And in the 4th week it was sold out.
do you remember when you first met Lawler?
Oh yeah.
What was that situation like? Was that
About
him
the
coming
same
back in
as
again?
it is today. How are you, King? Hey, I did. So that's, you know.
What about?
We get along great in the ring, and you know, tag partners are against one another. But he don't come to my house, and I don't go to his. It's just a business relationship that works, and it has worked for 30-something odd years. And the people just like to see us in there against one another or together. They don't care. They know something's going to happen, and they know we really don't love one another.
I know, like back then, even the territories had territories in the sense of, like, I guess Memphis had a couple of different branches of wrestling, right? Or
Well, yeah, they had
how
two ends.
cutthroat was that between when you're in the same town?
Well, we did the same towns every night. It was Memphis, Louisville, Evansville, Lexington, Kentucky, Tupelo, and Jonesboro, Jackson, Tennessee on Sunday. And then they had Birmingham, Huntsville. There was another end of it, Chattanooga, Knoxville, and Nick Goulis run that end. Then when Jarrett and Goulis split, Jarrett just took his towns and we all left. Me and Lawler both went with him, and Fargo and Tojo stayed with Nick on his end, and that's what they called the Nashville end. And we came to Memphis, and we just kind of stayed there. And Nick went out of business, and we still stayed. If the cable television hadn't come along, we would still be flying high.
That's what I'm saying. What we know of is Memphis wrestling. What made it rain? Why did it come out?